we wanted to take our time today, as this is the last and final broadcast of this monumental year, to reflect and to think about what we just went through. Take inventory of the past year, recap it. What did we just live through? Let's just go back to a year ago, our last broadcast of the year in 2023. 2023, looking into 2024, it looked daunting. I want you just to remember where you were, the news we were covering. It was incredibly daunting. Donald Trump was facing 700 years in federal prison. Donald Trump was not raising the money that major presidential candidates would be at that time. A year ago, we had not even had the Iowa caucus. A year ago, Ron DeSantis was still an active presidential candidate. A year ago, Nikki Haley was still an active presidential candidate. A year ago, Vivek Ramaswamy. I mean, we had this whole field of challengers against President Trump a year ago. And we had not even gone through Iowa yet. A year ago, Ronna was still the chair of the RNC. A year ago, Joe Biden was the betting odds favorite to become president of the United States. A year ago, Joe Biden was still the Democrat presumptive nominee. It was daunting, and we were battle-hardened. After 2020, many of us became prisoners of cynicism and negativity. Almost everywhere I would visit, I would have to force people to try to believe. Yes, we can do it. They said, oh, our vote doesn't matter. Our elections are rigged. And yes, a lot of you in this audience, I saved all of your emails. A lot of your emails. In fact, I could read them, but I don't know if it's a good use of our time. Where you guys would say, you don't know what you're talking about. We're going to lose no matter what. Don't embrace early voting. Nobody cares. And in some ways I get that, because you were held captive. You were a hostage of the carnage of 2020. What's the point in voting? It's all rigged. But I made a promise to all of you. I made a promise to all of you a year ago. The last broadcast of 2023, I made a progress to Turning Point donors. I made a promise. I made a promise to our audience here on the Charlie Kirk Show. I made a promise to our millions of followers out there. I said, no one will work harder than Turning Point Action and the Charlie Kirk Show. I said, I will work. I said, I will travel the country. I will go to every nook and cranny. We will register the voters. We will chase the votes. We'll get into the elemental grassroots. We're going to hire 1,500 people. We're going to do the gritty type of work. We made a promise. We made a proclamation that no one would work harder. We did not guarantee success, but I asked many of you, please allow yourself to believe. Allow yourself to believe that this is possible. Allow yourself to believe that we can do this. Allow yourself to believe that we can win. And in some ways, the greatest challenge of 2024 was not even what we did. The greatest challenge was getting people to think we could win. The biggest challenge was believing. The hardest part for us was not hiring 1,500 people or raising the tens of millions of dollars it required to have the largest full-time army to chase ballots. The hardest thing was not visiting all the campuses or the 1.8 billion TikTok views, which, by the way, Ryan, I want to do a whole thing on that in this hour because it was monumental what we were able to do on TikTok this last year. 1.8 billion views on TikTok alone, not to mention YouTube or Instagram. No, the hardest part of what we were doing and what we did this last year was getting everyday rank and file Americans to think that their vote mattered, that they need to fight, and that Donald Trump can win. And think about it, it just seemed overwhelming. It just seemed as if there's no way we could defeat the beast, that the machine is undefeated, that the Leviathan is going to pull something out of their sleeve, that there is something that was coming around the corner. And honestly, some of you were right when you said that. They did have a lot planned, but it just didn't fail. It didn't work. It failed. It required hope. It required faith. The greatest loser of 2024, the greatest loser, was doomerism and cynicism. The greatest loser were the thousands of you that would email us at times and say, Charlie, I'm not going to work. I'm not going to chase ballots. I'm not going to register voters because it's all rigged. Turns out you were wrong. It turns out those of us that believed enough to make it too big to rig, to hire the people to chase the ballots, to get in the grassroots, to take over the precinct committee positions, that you actually can effectuate change. 2024 should be the death of doomerism and not believing that change is possible. We won the youth vote in the state of Michigan, everybody. We nearly won it in Wisconsin. We nearly won it in Pennsylvania. We moved the youth vote 30 plus points. But if you were to come to the table with a belief system or a philosophy, oh no, it's impossible to change things and the country's going to hell and there's no reversing it, that mentality we were able to break with a lot of work. It wasn't easy because in some ways, the greatest opposition this last year was not of the left. It was cynical people on the right. Donors that didn't think that Trump could win. Grassroots folks that thought it was irredeemably rigged. But Charlie, the machines, voting early is terrible. Turns out voting early was actually excellent. Without voting early, we wouldn't have won. We were our own greatest enemy. And we worked. And we acted. Do you guys remember this last summer? This last June, July, August? When every day I said find new voters and register new voters? You helped make this happen. And this audience has been the tip of the spear, the vanguard. Every single day I'd be giving these pep talks in July, be giving these pep talks in August. Guys, we only have 100 days left to register voters. And all of that made a difference. And this year, this 2024, as we go through the individual elements throughout this hour, should be the end of saying that can't happen. No, it can happen. You just witnessed and were part of the greatest comeback in American political history. And all the doomers, all the people that were overly negative, they were wrong, and those of us that believed were right.